Everybody hear me all right?
No,
Yeah? No? That's good? Is that too loud?
that's fine.
I'm really not used to talking.
As long as your microphone's good.
What's that? Microphone's good? Okay. Welcome. It was September of 2013, and I'd just been awarded the only 2 web design awards that mattered to me. And I felt nothing. No joy. Just total emptiness. None of the elated feelings that I expected to feel, that I told myself my whole career that I would feel if I ever were to win even one FWA or a award. And this was my 5th. And I should have known by then that satisfaction and job fulfillment weren't waiting for me on the other side of this. But my hunger for recognition and validation from my peers was really strong at the time. It still is, but it was at the time too. I hadn't found that satisfaction in awards won for clients or for their charities. It was just like a hollow place. But I felt like I had one final shot at finding fulfillment, and that was my new portfolio site. So 3 years earlier, my craft and my future met a sudden end because of a man named Steve Jobs. You probably heard of him. You know, he snatched the food right out of my kid's mouth. He killed Flash, and with it, my identity and my source of income. But luckily, Flash died slowly, and I eventually found my footing, and things turned around. So after some time flailing around and having an identity crisis and trying to find my place as a newly minted JavaScript developer, things were going pretty well. Truth was, I was really tired of Flash by then. I had been doing it for 10 years, and it felt like every project I went into was just the same. I was going into it with the same assumptions and coming up with a lot of the same results. So it was really good for me. So with JavaScript, even the things that had become mundane to me were exciting again. And the things that people were sort of growing tired of in Flash, you know, motion for no reason, suddenly was exciting again in JavaScript. And I was getting the validation that I sought from people saying, wow, that's really cool. And really all I was doing is what I did in Flash, but in not Flash. So after a few years of writing JavaScript and, you know, being an HTML5 guy, somebody can say HTML5 anymore? I was doing work I was proud of, and it was time to show that on my portfolio site. So, tons of self-doubt, you know. I spent a couple weeks just focused on creating this portfolio site. And eventually, everything just felt right, everything fell in place. The design felt like my own. The CMS list JavaScript, it had stories that I felt like were relatable and you know, told the story of the projects I had done. Building it was a real rush. It was a time in my career where I felt like I had control of my craft while still being able to be a beginner again and learn things that maybe I learned before I forgot and just found the joy in them again. So launching that site was like a shot of ice water in my veins. Like that feeling when you send something out in the world and then you wait. And you just hope that somebody reacts to it positively. You know, that validates that the work you spent so long on, you put so much energy into, that somebody's it's gonna make a difference to them somehow, or it's gonna inspire them somehow. So, you know, I tweeted it out and waited to see if anybody cared. You know, would anybody like it as much as I hoped they would? I don't get a chance to stand in front of people and you know, talk about my work or talk about my feelings. And I know this setting is probably better suited for Cerebral. You guys are at a place that, you know, you can learn from experts how to be better at your jobs, how to use crazy new libraries, new technologies, and you can learn a lot from these experts. I'm just not one of them. So anyway, I don't want to waste this opportunity to talk to a room full of smart people like this. So I'm going to try not to sound confident about things I'm not, or falsely humble about things that I am. I'm attempting to speak from my heart, but I wrote these words, so I'm going to fumble and try and read them and seem like it's just, you know, that I'm just divinely inspired. But I actually wrote these words, and now I'm going to read them. So last time I was here at Develop Denver was 2 years ago, and on my way to the airport, I like to select text and then have Siri read them to me. So I did that. I selected the whole speech, talk, whatever, and hit speak, but I hit delete. And so I showed up completely empty. I didn't have a speech. I had what I'd written on the plane, which, you know, a lot of the same thoughts made it in there. But I stood in front of a group there. Was anybody there? Yeah, okay. All right. Let's see. Anyway, it was a little bit rocky. But I learned that I can walk in someplace empty, and things might not go horribly. But yeah, back to the portfolio story. So all the people I had been intimidated by when I became a JavaScript developer, the ones you know, creating the WTF tumblers about, you know, bad examples of everything that was happening on the web at the time. I was certain they would call up my site for cheap animation tricks and you know, Neo Flash. But they ended up responding with positivity to the site I launched. And then soon after came these awards. First an FWA site of the day, and then the award site of the day. And so at that point I had accomplished something that 19-year-old me would have never believed was possible. My new portfolio was having its moment in the spotlight, and I was pretending that it was making me happy. In reality, I was coming to terms with a realization that 15 years into my web design career, that the peak that I was after, this high point in my career, was a mirage in the distance, someplace that I wasn't going to get to. So if at that point career success hadn't brought me happiness, could it ever? It feels like I'm telling somebody else's story right now, because we've all heard this story so many times, right? Like, man reaches summit and sees taller summit in the distance. Man has success and feels unfulfilled. Panda collects dragon scroll and it is empty. So I thought about changing careers, maybe becoming a manager instead of a maker. I thought if I was ever going to find satisfaction, it'd need to come from someplace else. So now's a good time to tell you that I'm a father of 4, and just yesterday I celebrated 15 years of marriage to the gorilla back there. Sorry. So it's probably easy to guess where I found the contentment that I sought. Artificial intelligence. I'm just kidding. Sort of. So I don't know why you're here. I mean, I'm glad you're here, but I was worried, nobody would come. But I don't know why you did. I don't know why you're at this conference. And I know you're here because they sold tickets and you got them. But I don't know whether you're here to learn from something from an expert or to network. Maybe just because your employer paid for it and you'd rather be here to work. I definitely don't know why you're here in this room. Why you're not learning about Webpack or talking about Agile in Denver, which is incredibly important. So I won't feel bad if you guys aren't into this and just want to run up there. But I am glad you're here. So you're here. My wife's here, which is weird and fun. And that guy's here. And so I'm here not to sell you on a product or a process, but I am here to sell you on my story and on my experiences and my perspectives. So I hope that I'll have some positive impact on you. But is anything I say or do here today going to make any difference? Is it going to matter at all? Is anything I'm about to say going to change your opinions about the world, or how it operates, or how you might operate in it? Is it going to change your perspectives on our industry or its future? And what will I show you that will have any influence on how you do your job or how you do your place in the world? So I don't know why you're here. Maybe to learn something you think I might know that you don't. So, despite having acknowledged that I'm not somebody who can teach you something about development, and I'm not going to make you better developers or teach you JavaScript tricks, I do have a fear that I'll stand in front of you for 30 or 40 minutes and not actually say anything. That I won't tell you anything you don't already know, or that you'll leave empty. So I started thinking, if that's my biggest fear, could I make that my topic? So that's what I did. The topic of my talk is showing up empty and leaving empty. So if you leave here as empty or emptier than you came, I'll have succeeded. I'll have succeeded by failing to add another thing to your brain. I may just tell you things you already know, maybe things you forgot, because some shiny object distracted you, and a code library promised the Holy Grail, and you got away from doing what matters to you. If I'm really successful, hopefully I'll take something from you, some of the weight. There's so much worry and self-doubt in the job we do. So many feelings of inadequacy. And my hope is that by standing in front of you, being inadequate, confidently, that maybe I can just be somebody who you remember one day embraced that inadequacy and stood in front of a group of people who really wanted to impress, but tried to put that aside in order to speak from his heart. So the lens I'm projecting through is that of a designer and a front-end developer. Who in the room is a developer? Okay, a designer? Something else? Well, the topics aren't unique to people who do what we do. They're not unique to the tech industry, or to digital natives, or to millennials, which I am one of. 1978, if you look it up. It's right at the comment. So my dad's a contractor. And when you or I hear that someone's a contractor, we think, somebody who does project work for Crispin, or maybe Uniqlo, or something cool like that. But he's not that kind of contractor. He and his crew install giant laminated beams. They do it in mega churches, and if you've ever bought ammo at favelas, then you've done under his work. So he and his crew, they do more hard work by lunch than I'll do in my career, pushing pixels and code. And their work is labor intensive, and it's really repetitive. They've built roughly the same giant building almost 15 times. And despite having built that same building 15 times, each new instance comes with its own set of challenges. Sometimes a new team. Does this sound familiar? But his wireframes come on blue paper, and his red wing boots aren't from the Heritage Collection. But when he and I discuss our respective occupations, there's as much in common between us as there is difference. His clients sometimes suck. His getting paid is a hassle. Insurance for everyone is a headache. He's always waiting on someone else, and the third person is always telling him to hurry up. But maybe the biggest difference between what he and I do is that what he does, 30 years after starting doing this, almost all of it still stands. So you can walk into the buildings that he's worked on, and he loves to, when he's done with the project, he loves to have the grandkids come out and see what he did. And every time I stand under these impressive structures, I'm just in awe. And I, on the other hand, few of the things that I've built in the last 18 years are still alive. A couple websites, maybe some of the influences I had on an app that hasn't been redesigned or undesigned. But our industry is one that looks forward. We don't really care about what you've built. We're more interested in what's coming next. So, we spend a lot of our time and our focus on getting to a finished product, despite knowing that we're more interested in what's coming next than what's done. So yeah, when's the last time you sat in front of an empty Google search and thought, I can search all of the world's information right now, anything I want? Like, never. There's so much to be in awe of, but we're not. Instead we say something to Siri, and when we don't get our result on the first hit, then we're frustrated. That technology failed us. So nothing impresses us. Why do we try so hard to impress each other? My dad and his crew, they collapse, sweaty, on a couch in the outskirts of some suburb, in an unfamiliar place. And when their work is done, people marvel at what they've constructed. And at the bar later that night, they're not talking about what framework they should have been using or should have been using. They do their work, they feed their families, they get paid a minimum wage. Donald Trump resonates with them in ways that we'll probably never understand. And they don't attend conferences, and they don't grow mustaches ironically. But we do repetitive work just like that. We build things for suits with money who know very little about us, or people like us, or what we actually do. And also, for some reason, we wear work boots and flannels. We have beards and consider ourselves craftsmen too. But I'm a really expensive laborer. And my labor is really easy. My tools aren't heavy. My fatigue is only ever mental, aside from a little carpal tunnel from time to time. But yeah, my fatigue is only ever mental, and usually that's some pointless reason, that by tomorrow isn't going to be affecting me. So yeah, when I complete a project, I call my kids over and I say, hey, look at this thing that I made. And sometimes they say, oh, cool, Dad. But usually that's only if it's for some app or some game that they're excited about, or a movie that's coming out. And by the time it's released, they've forgotten that I even built it. But every time we drive past a Cabela's, at least one of my kids looks up from their phone and says, Papa built that. And I don't know if I'll ever feel that. And, I'd love to. But despite 18 years of designing and developing websites, I've learned very little. I've learned lots of things, but one by one, it seems like those things I become sure of, they fall, and something takes their place. It's like by the time I have it mastered, and I could actually teach somebody else about it, something else comes along and takes its place. So, that happened with Flash. 10 years, I made a living on Flash, and now it's not a thing. I learned to realistically illustrate icons at very small sizes. And now everything is one color. A few shapes. That's it. I design custom websites with lots of thoughtful interactivity in them, and now usually a Squarespace site with a little parallax widget. So I've written, reams of CSS that was clever and had all kinds of tricks in it, and now I can plug in, base CSS or tachyons and just go to town right in the markup. So, my self-doubt about our future is absolutely as strong as anybody in this room. And my laziness, I think, is probably at least top 2%. My lack of attention and organization and ability to make up my mind and finish a thought is off the charts. So you guys see all the same links I do, and the same clever tweets, and the same epic blog posts by influencers. And you've tried most of the libraries that I have, and you've likely understood them more than I do. And since I have nothing to teach you, I have to fall back on my experiences, and my observations, and my failures, my shortcomings. Those are the things that I'm most consistently good at. And they're the source of my creativity sometimes, and they comprise my process, or my lack of process. So I think a lot of things, and I have come up with lots of ideas, and I break a lot of things, and I disappoint myself a lot, and others. And I do it enough to feel like I'm an expert. And I don't know if that's a good thing to be an expert at, but this isn't a talk about failure. It's not a talk about a different perspective on failure. It's more about fear and survival instinct and learning to be uncomfortable and assume you're wrong. I hope it's coherent. So, since robots are taking all of our jobs, why would I want to teach you things that I've learned about a job that'll soon be obsolete? Why would I want the next generation to do things that I did when, after 18 years of learning how, a computer can do most of it better than I can? When you do a job for a long time, you get attached to it, you get emotionally attached. And you start to think, I wish the people that I love could do a job like mine, that they love doing, that they're challenged and, that fulfills them. So then when the company downsizes or something takes your place, you feel like you lost something, more than just a job. So my goal as a designer at The Grid is to teach and train AI. That sounds really crazy to say. Training AI. I'm training it to teach it to do the tedious things that I'm tired of doing. That I'm sure many of you are tired of doing. So things like making sure everything is aligned, converting flat designs into code, making minor updates throughout the life of a project as a client, or director changes their mind about the font or the color or the alignment, photo treatment, button shape. I don't want designers to have a project killed because of a lack of internal communication, and client gatekeepers killed it. That's the same reason we're so hot on that job right now. They don't want the same thing. So there's way too much talent in our industry for anybody to spend a week doing 10 mock-ups with fake content. That's just, it shouldn't happen. And I hope that somehow the last 2 years of my life, working on AI, in this delusional place, the future of AI, future of web design, then maybe I can give you a little bit of a starting point for what that world looks like, that wasn't there when I started. So, what's up? So, I'm not an AI expert. I know very little about it, even after 2 years working in it. What I am is a web designer. And I'm a web designer from before there was UX, or before there was creative coders, or creative technologists, or interactive strategists. When making it look good was good enough. I'm also somebody who spent his career in life adapting when I could see that the path I was on was a dead end. I've had to admit more than once that the work that I've done previously was like a heaping pile of garbage. And as I look back at the work that I've done in the last 15 years, there's only a couple things that I'm really proud of. But for the last 2 years, I've been a designer immersed in AI. And I'm not creating it in the sense of writing complicated algorithms or inventing new interactions or writing one-liners for a robot voice to do. I've been translating my craft, our craft, into rules that a computer can execute on. And so a process that was once opaque to me, something that I sort of thought of as kind of magical, like something I shouldn't really dissect. I've been just sort of laying that bare and looking at it very closely. And dissecting so that I can write a set of constraints that AI will translate into websites for thousands or millions of people. So when the opportunity to work on the grid presented itself, I just started a studio with my friends Trevor O'Brien and Nick Bella. We recently finished a project for Game of Thrones for HBO, and a website and branding for Circle.com, which is a Bitcoin bank. We were in the process of pitching Showtime on a real-time content creation app for viewers, and a redesign of Hulu.com. So business was far better than any of us expected it to be 3 months into this new venture. But none of us was feeling satisfied. Like, we were still looking beyond the projects that were right in front of us, or the projects we just finished, thinking there was some place that we could just get this next thing, and there wasn't. So then Lee Taylor called. Those of you who don't know Lee, he's an incredible designer, one of the early designers of Medium.com, which I have great respect for, and was thrilled that he was calling me. And Lee showed me that this set of designs he'd been sitting on for about a year and a half, and it amounted to academic papers on design styles and systems and spectrums. And he showed me how any website could be reduced to a set of variables on spectrums from simple to complex. And how every font choice, color palette, layout grid was somewhere between very simple and very complex. So, on the simple end, you've got left-aligned, mono-size system font with full width single column, no decoration or color, to very complex. Multi-column overlapping elements with gradients, patterns, contrasting sizes, filtered photos, informal fonts, rhythmic colors, shadows, borders, embellishments, all the things we wish our clients would ask us for. And he showed me that all the decisions that we make as visual designers, those font choices and color palettes and layout grids, the decorations and transitions, those could all be selected by an AI designer based on a person's preferences. And that could be done all without, some poor sucker like me clicking drop downs, or like moving things a few pixels over, and then saving, and then doing it again and again and again. So he showed me that what I had spent a decade doing, in order to only produce a few dozen sites, could be accomplished many hundreds of times in a few seconds with the help of the right algorithm. And after conversations with the Grid's founder, Dan Tacchini, I became convinced, and my partners became convinced that what Squarespace hadn't already commoditized about my job as a web designer, the most creative parts, was about to. So at that point, the choice I was faced with was, to listen to my gut and my initial reaction to this idea was that, no way, this is all BS. The computer can't do what I do. That these guys are going to fail trying to replace the work that I was doing in the same way that templates never replaced us. UI libraries didn't replace us. And flat design hasn't made designers irrelevant. So, after my recent low point of getting to a place I thought I was going to feel a success, and feeling empty after that, I realized that the emptiness I felt wasn't a bad thing. That was actually a good place to be. The problem was that I expected that this outcome, that these awards, that recognition was going to feel really good, and since it didn't, I tried to go into this project with the Grid and remain open. So going in empty. So yeah, I went in empty, and I was a beginner again. You know, I'm not really sure why they reached out to me, to be honest. You know, I had been designing websites and you know, doing that for a long time. But the only thing I can think of is that I got to work on the Prometheus marketing campaign. And in it, I created a website for an AI called David, and presented him as if he was a real person. So I had some experience marketing AI that didn't exist yet. And that, you know, that's another topic, but you know, you get paid to do the things that you've already done, that people can see that you've done, and then you prove it. So luckily I had that in my book. And so I went into the grid as a beginner, and I had no notions about what it should or shouldn't be. I just had this curiosity about whether it could really happen, and if I could play some role in that. So I decided then that if someone's going to make me irrelevant, it should be me. So for the last couple of years, I worked in a field that I know nothing about, in hopes that I could shape it just a little bit, and maybe be ready in a way that I wasn't ready when Flash died. So despite all the hype around AI, I'm not seeing it change anybody's lives in any meaningful way. Amazon and Netflix can suggest things, but you know, my dad and my kids, it hasn't changed their lives in any way. But you know, what it's doing right now is it's allowing us to develop tools that that we can't really imagine, you know, having pushed pixels around in Photoshop, or you know, writing CSS the way we have for so long. And I still can't, you know, I can't write an algorithm that will you know, do something impressive. But I see the potential in it, and I work with 30 or so people who all see the potential in it. So on some days, you know, I'm certain that we're going to be successful, that this is going to, you know, upend everything I do. On other days, I question whether we're the right team, you know, whether we can actually pull this off. But usually the pendulum swings back, and you know, once again, I see the potential, and I see that, you know, we might not be the right team to do it, but we started doing it 2 years ago, and all of our failures and all of our successes are a shared understanding that, you know, that this can be done. So the people who explore things early, before they're ready for mass adoption, they get to have a lasting influence on them. It's why we're still copying Vignelli and Brockman, you know, 40 or 50 years after they, you know, laid this groundwork, because there was no grid. It's like the designers were designing without, and not the grid. There was no grid to design. And so, you know, it's exciting to go into a field where, you know, these algorithms haven't been written, and you know, the potential that they have hasn't been realized. So, you know, I don't go into projects anymore thinking that, you know, fulfillment is on the other side. You know, I begin with full awareness that my current understanding is wrong, and that I'm only certain of my doubt. Not really. I don't really do that. But I want to. You know, I want to get to that enlightened place where, you know, where just doing the work is the joy. But I'm still very, you know, needy, and I'm hopeful that people will like the work that I do. So, I'm going to talk about what's going on behind me here for the next 15 minutes. And I hope that I succeeded, that I didn't really teach you anything. I imagine your brains are getting kind of full from being here, and learning about all these interesting topics and these great technologies. When you're certain you're closed, and when you've marked your answer in pen, and there's no way you're going to ask for a new test because you're almost done, you don't want to start over. I spent a lot of my careers doing things that a computer is better at than me. And I'm hopeful that the work that I'm doing can take away some of that monotony. I got the chance to work with John Gold and Adam Morse and Brent Jackson, who are leading this charge in functional CSS, which if you're not get into, it's really a great place. Because honestly, I don't care about CSS. I don't want to write CSS. And they've written it all. You just have to access the properties. And it's lovely. So I love those guys a lot. My goal then is to never be so sure of myself or of my own, of my own conclusions, that I go in unable to see new possibilities in all the things that I'm already biased against, and to never stop listening or trying to understand, to remain empty. So let's talk about this. I've spent a lot of time as a designer doing lots of mock-ups and trying lots of things, and seeing what works and what doesn't work. And this is a sort of a tool that I built for prototyping components on the grid. And there's no constraints built in. So what you're seeing here isn't. Some of it's going to be ugly. It's just going to be bad, and the decisions that are being made that are all random. But the scroll here, every one of the ones that you guys have seen since you've been here have been saved down here as a layout that was entirely randomly generated. So I didn't design anything here. I wrote a little bit of markup. I randomized some JavaScript and it calls from different arrays. And there's about 3 billion possibilities in layouts here, which I couldn't design 100 in a week. And since we've sat here, this has been every 10 seconds it designs a new one. Yeah, it's been a while. So it's given us. Does that say 371 in the corner? Okay, so it's given us 371 different layouts. And what I love about this is that I'm totally detached from it. As a designer, I want you to like my designs. And when an art director looks at the work and says, no, that's no good, or a creative director shuts it down for whatever reason, I feel personally like, they killed my work. Like I spent a lot of time pushing those pixels around, making those design decisions, and what this allows me to do is just look at these and, objectively say, yeah, I like that one, or I don't. This isn't a design tool yet. This isn't, something that I use in client work or have found the right use for. But in creating components for the grid, I'm able to generate, a million of these in a day and go through it as slowly or quickly as I want. Pick out the ones that I actually want to build, and they're already built. If I sorry guys, I don't know how to use this organization. Okay, so if I sort of like this one, but I say, no, that title's not big enough. I can do that, and now I have, I can just copy the CSS from this, and I can create my own component. There's certain decisions in these that I never would make as a designer, and sometimes they fail, and sometimes they're good. But I don't see it as a finished thing, but it's enough of proof to me as a designer that it's really my taste that people are paying for, and my ability to use my tools. So, because I can create a few designs that I think a client will look good, and my experience has proven that they will, they pay me a lot of money to do some designs, and I can only do a few a day. So, this opens up a whole new world to me, not to be the designer who has to, satisfy the art director, who has to satisfy the creative director, who has to satisfy the client. I don't need all of that. I can sit with my client and say, I'm not going to show them millions of things because that would be just stupid. But I can select some that I really think work, and I don't have to worry about this title, whether it works for 3 words or 300 words, right? I don't have to think about that. I can have lots of components, and they'll be used. And this is how we do it on the grid. The components that are chosen are based on, photo orientation, or the resolution, or the length of the text. We're good until 2:15, right? Okay. So. I don't know. I don't want to be to sell you guys on anything, but it's an exciting time to be doing this, and there's so few people who are seriously doing it. And anybody in here who's a developer who does understand algorithms and can write a Markov chain and have it create an output, start playing with it, because it is a really powerful tool, and those tools are being built. And it's a rare opportunity for us right now to be on that early stage of shaping where it is. So if you guys have any questions, please.
Could you speak for a moment about your time working at Div?
Yeah. Hold on a second. I asked permission to actually say anything about that. Can't say much. But that's like crazy stuff. And I had very little, I got to see a lot, and it definitely firmed up my belief. What they're doing is a crazy other level. I got to do some early prototyping, so to do just some interaction. How do you talk to an AI? How do you get the results that you want? So that was again, I'm not qualified to do that. And the great thing is there really isn't anybody who is right now. So anybody the playing field's really been level. Again, it happens over and over. The playing field is level, and anybody who moves into that space gets to shape it. Specifically, I can't really say much about it, but it's really cool. And it's gonna be great. Anybody else? Yeah.
Is this something that you're planning on just, it's like a personal project, or is this something you're actually like working on trying to like release as like a prototyping tool?
No, not yet. No, I guess I'm definitely focused on making the grid create beautiful websites. Kind of as like, if you think of what Bootstrap did, how it moved the baseline up from, this really, everything was pretty ugly across the web, and then Bootstrap made it look all right. And now material design is making it look pretty good. And the hope is that with this, the baseline will move up again, and at a scale that doesn't force each of us to like go work in that new, the flavor of the month. So, it's. Did I answer your question? Okay. Yeah.
Sure, if you could talk about David real quick, your early AI.
Oh, that wasn't mine. That was. Have you seen Prometheus? The movie. Okay. It's like the Alien sort of prequel thing. It was I don't know. It's a sci-fi movie. So yeah, it was just like it was one of those alternate reality campaign kind of websites. So we were pretending to sell this human-like robot, just as a promotion for the movie. Yeah.
So in your experience, do you feel like there's kind of like an upper ceiling that AI is going to hit as far as like what it's actually going to be capable of doing, or do you feel like we'll just keep going and keep going?
Yeah, keep going and going.
Right.
I mean, I think we're already expecting way too much of it. So, when we run into that with the grid, it's like, oh, your AI doesn't even know how to design. It's like, yeah, it doesn't. We're training it every day. I know how to design. Right? Like I've proven I know how to design, but I don't know how to teach an AI how to design. I just, fully believe that it's possible. So once that happens, then I'm free to go work on, I don't know. I'm excited to find out what that is. What do I get to work on when I don't have to worry about how to center a title, vertically and horizontally on a page, every day. So, yeah, and when it comes, we're not talking about general AI or super intelligence. It's just like something that can make use of an algorithm to make a pleasing layout. Anybody else? Thanks for coming, guys.